Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tackling Sport podcast. It's another live episode for you, joined as always by my brother Daniel. How are you getting on, Dan?
Not too bad. How's things?
Yeah, and we're going back to previewing a bit of horse racing. It's the end of the national hunt season, and we've got our two main guests that we've had to preview Cheltenham, which is over a month and a half ago, which seems a bit bonkers. Joining us first is Blair White's blogs, Andrew Blair White. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
No worries, Sean. Looking forward to it.
And also Irish Field contributor Brian Dowling live from Meath. How are you getting on, Brian?
How are you, Shawnee? All right, buddy.
Well, a lot has happened since we've spoken both. Obviously with the two Grand Nationals, obviously the Irish one and the English one, both kind of as spectacular as each other. I'll go to you, Brian. What did you take from both of them? And obviously Rachael Blackmore just continuing on from where she left off, and she could potentially overtake Paul this week.
Yeah, well, they were two fantastic nationals, weren't they? I mean, it was a great story for Dermot McLaughlin and Ricky Doyle and Freewheel and Dillon. I mean, it was amazing. It was a very, very gutsy performance, and I spoke to a few people who had a 5 each way at 150 to 1, which was always nice to have as well. So I mean, it was brilliant for that reason, and a big local success. And Dermot's a great trainer and mightn't get the credit he deserves. So I mean, it was fantastic. And then of course the English national then was just I was kind of kicking myself after the race. You think you would have just had a savoury bet on Rachael the way she was going, and you wouldn't have any money on. But I mean, apart from that, now she was fantastic. I mean, the race been ran for 150, 60, 70 years, and not a woman rider hasn't even ridden in it. Women riders weren't even allowed to ride in the race up until the 1970s. So it was fantastic. It really was, and it was great for John Allen's academy, and obviously Manella Indo winning the Gold Cup and Manella Times winning the national. I mean, it was just a fantastic story. It was a brilliant whole communal story, and obviously the season Henry was having, it was a great success for everybody, and it was a great watch. It was great, and the feedback, the aftermath of it as well was enjoyable, and it was great.
And Andrew, obviously when Rachael Blackmore finished up in Cheltenham, she might have had that little bit of bittersweet taste, if you like, because of the Gold Cup and not going with Manila Indo, but she picked the right Manila in Aintree.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'd say that was the only thing on her mind coming home from Cheltenham, which seems stupid, like when she's had such a good week. But I think that decision kind of cut her up. But I think winning a Grand National would do anything to dispel all of that. So she was absolutely superb. The horse was super. I'm the same as Brian. Like, you're there going, why did I not just have a few quid on? But there I'm staring at it like from 3 out home. Manella Times was the winner, so you're there going, oh Christ Almighty. But yeah, no, it was absolutely superb, and now she's gotten a good run at Paul now, with Paul being out for a few weeks, but I think she's still got work cut out here, because you look at next week, Paul Townend's got some book of rides. And I'm sure he'll have it in his head. He probably didn't have quite as good a Cheltenham as he wanted to. Coming away from Cheltenham with 3 winners is no mean feat. But with the book of rides he had, he probably was a little bit disappointed. So I'm sure he'd love nothing more than to have an extremely good week now. Punchestown, Willie Mullins usually does so, and if that's the case, then I'm sure Paul Townend will just be able to hang on.
And down on that, like, we spoke obviously about Rachael in the aftermath of Aintree, but kind of looking back now with a bit of time, and even kind of Henry De Bromhead's achievements have kind of gone under the radar because of Rachael Blackmore. And like you said, after Cheltenham, she'd the Irish Sports Person of the Year award wrapped up. If she hadn't then, she probably has now after Aintree, but also a note on Henry De Bromhead and the year he's had.
Yeah, it almost felt awkward watching ITV, and like if I was doing it, I would have made it all about Rachael as well. But I think they had Henry De Bromhead standing there, and I think there's like a 7-minute clip on YouTube and 6 minutes talking about Rachael Blackmore. But it's just the story. But you're right, like Henry De Bromhead's training performances has been unreal. Now, granted, obviously he's got a couple of horses from Gordon Elliott, but he was already closing that gap. And let's think about maybe even 2 years ago, it was always going to be, it was Gordon Elliott and Willie Mullins, and that's the way it was just set in Irish racing for the next few years. And the fact that Henry De Bromhead has not only managed to break that, but obviously it's accelerated a little bit with what's happened, but he's managed to, win the biggest races. And you could just see the shock in his face when the Grand National. But like the lad said, I was just, why didn't I not have a fiver on that? So I was working going, why didn't I have Rachael Blackmore for the Grand National? It was just written in the stars. But obviously she didn't have a winner in Ferry House, which just shows you the highs and lows of racing. She's had some amount of falls from the start of Cheltenham to now. Like even at Aintree, she had a few falls. So I don't know if any jockey's fallen as much. So it just shows you the highs and lows, and that's why I think she'll keep herself grounded. But she is definitely, in my opinion anyway, the one you want to be riding your horses at the moment. She's just incredible.
And obviously she did a treble in Kilbeggan last week. She's kind of closed the gap, Brian. And obviously this is a time of year where we've seen the close to the national hunt in the UK, and Punchestown always has that kind of feeling to it. And even going back, like, it's hard to think 2 years ago that it was Ruby Walsh's farewell and on Envoy.
Yeah, well, you want to be a fair jockey now to ride a treble below in Kilbeggan, but absolutely, it's going to make for a good spectacle now this week. I mean, I kind of have to echo what Andrew said. I agree. I think that Townend probably has the ball's probably in his court. I think he's like 8-1 on to win the jockey's title. But I mean, stranger things have happened. But it's going to make for an intriguing week, and it adds to the whole spectacle of the festival. I mean, the Punchestown Festival is the standout festival on the Irish calendar on a national hunt scale because of the quality. I mean, I think there's like 12 Grade 1s in 5 days. I mean, it's absolute race in heaven, and it's going to add an extra edge to the whole week. But look, as we're going to get into now, there's going to be some fantastic duels, and it could come down to a Rachael versus Paul special, especially on the first day. So, I mean, it's going to be good. I can't wait now.
And on that, Brian, obviously, like we're getting some people's naps for the week. Monkfish, Bob Ollinger. We're going to see a lot of horses that have come from Cheltenham in a month and a half, and I think that's what a lot of people really like about Punchestown. We're seeing the best of the Irish at the end of the national hunt season, but after the kind of the high of Cheltenham, and a lot of these horses are on the top of everyone's minds and lips.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think the big thing now, you see, the only thing like that worries me with the week going forward is the ground, the weather. We've had such good weather over the last 2 weeks that the ground is drying up a lot, and it could come to the case where I know the first day now we have a couple of great clashes, but as the week goes on, you might see a couple of horses being pulled out because of the ground might be too hard for them, and it's just the way it is. Unfortunately, some years you get lucky at Punchestown that the April rain stays for the whole month and the ground is good national hunt ground, but it's going to firm up. Obviously, it's going to be watered, but that could be the only downside. But no, I completely agree with you. And as well, another big thing about Punchestown is that the English come over, and I think there's a few English horses entering it this week. And we've seen some great English winners going down through the years at Punchestown. I think it adds to the festival. It's great to see. I don't understand why they don't send more over even in the regular season, because, like, what is there to be? Well, I think they're just afraid. It's just a fear factor now. But I mean, that's going to add to it as well. But look, I might be worried about the ground getting too hard for some of these Cheltenham horses that they mightn't like it. But hopefully it doesn't. But sure, we'll see.
Andrew, have you, just as a disclaimer, have you had a good record at Punchestown finding winners?
Probably been a mixed bag. Sometimes very hard. It is a hard time of the season though, because you don't know, ground's turning. Very hard to know which horses have had a hard season and this will be one too many, and which horses can take it in stride and go on and win again. Usually you got to try, just keep going with form and then hope that, well, certainly that's the way I go, and hope that brings you through. There's always going to be a few horses in there that you've backed at Cheltenham and have won or run well for you, and you're probably going to go to the well again with them. So overall, I've probably been hit and miss. Few decent years, few not so great years, but you could say that with the majority of my punting. A few good weeks, few bad weeks. Very few excellent weeks and very few shocking weeks. I'm a very middle of the road man. So I had a good Cheltenham this year. So please God, if I had a good Punchestown this year, I'd be delighted.
Perfect. So we're going to run through, as Brian said, 12 grade runs across the 5 days, and we're going to run through all of them, the big action, and then we might get a few of the lads any fancies in the big handicap. So we're going to go to the first day's action, the second race, which is the first grade 1, small field, the novice hurdle, and the 4:15. Andrew, I'll go to you first. It's a small field. Are you kind of disappointed every time there's a small field, or do you think there's a few good quality horses in here?
Yeah, I suppose the turnout's a little bit disappointing. Very hard to know what's happening with Appreciated. You would have thought he was going to run in this race. I'd say the more and more it goes on, the more and more it's likely that he won't run this week, which is a shame because he's such a good horse. I think him and Bob Ollinger are just far clear as novice hurdlers this year. I think they're the two best by quite a long distance, especially when you take Fernie Hollow out. But look, Echoes in Rain and Blue Lord, though, are two very good horses. I'd probably just about side with Blue Lord. I thought he was running a super race in the Supreme. Definitely would have been second, well clear of the rest. Echoes in Rain just looks a hard ride. And I know Blue Lord's been keen in the past as well, but Echoes in Rain does look a hard ride. And you'd be interested that Paul Townend has picked Blue Lord over Echoes in Rain. Now, that isn't obviously rule. Paul Townend's gotten a few of these sort of decisions wrong, as you're always going to get with Willie Mullins horses. But I don't know in a small field whether Echoes in Rain might be a bit too keen, too hard on herself, and Blue Lord might be able to pick up the pieces in this. They should be well clear of the rest. On ratings they are, on form they are. Your one Colonel Mustard's a nice type of horse. I would have quite liked to have seen him in a big handicap this week. I think he'd have had a chance in a big handicap. But just about Blue Lord. But if I was being a wise bettor, if I had a wise betting hat on, I probably wouldn't touch this race.
Brian, do you echo that? Obviously, Echoes in Rain, Blue Lord. And do you think anything can be said for Paul Townend picking Blue Lord out of Willie Mullins?
I think he made the wrong choice, if I'm totally honest. I'm in the Echoes in Rain camp in this one. I think that the faster track will suit Blue Lord, but I can't get away from Echoes in Rain's performance at Fairyhouse. And I mean, if you go back through her form, like she smashed Belfast Banter by 8 lengths at Naas, and look what he's after doing. And she gets a £7 mare's allowance in this race. I just think it's it's just handing her the win in this, because that makes such a massive difference in races like these. And I understand it's a small field, and I can understand the angle that she might get a bit free, but she was tucked in behind at Fairyhouse and just waited for the gap to appear. And if she lets Blue Lord dictate and sits in behind her, when they turn in for home, she could just turn around and pick up the pieces. But I know the race kind of fell apart at Fairyhouse, but she won by 15 lengths. And she gave the suggestion that no matter, she looked really versatile. The ground was yielding, but it was kind of on the harder side. And I just don't really see how it could affect her. Like, the race at Naas was ran at an absolute ferocious gallop. She won by 8 lengths. The race at Fairyhouse was ran at an absolute snail's pace, turned into a glorified sprint. She won it by 15 lengths. So she seems to be versatile in how the race is won. She probably wouldn't have ran in this. She probably, if she wasn't a Grade 2 winner, she might have gone for the Mayor's Novice race, but she's taking her chance here. She gets £7. I think she wins. I think she wins comfortably.
So Brian's in the Echoes in Rain camp. Dan, Paddy Power have Echoes in Rain slight favour?
Yeah, just on your Cheltenham and Punchestown punting, people that know me well, like, I tend to do really well at Cheltenham and just piss it all away at Aintree, followed by Punchestown. And when I was telling people that early on, or later last year, I was kind of thinking, what happened to me last year? I think I did well. And I forgot that obviously Aintree and Punchestown were cancelled last year, which gave me a massive boost to the betting balance. So stay away from my tips and Punchestown. I just can't seem to figure out. I can't put Cheltenham form together, and I can't put horses that are fresh coming together. I overemphasize things, underemphasize it. Onto this race, I'm in Andrew's camp though with Blue Lord, because I do think, like, if he didn't fall at the last of Supreme, he would have ran a cracking race, obviously. And I think he was like 6 or 7 lengths down. He was always going to lose. He's going to be well beaten second. But if you kind of take that form without Appreciated, so take Appreciated out of that race, and Blue Lord would have won the Supreme in that impressive fashion, albeit against a weak field. But he still had the likes of Ballyadam there, albeit he made a mistake as well. So I would take that form. One thing I would say though about the Tuesday race, and why there are 3 cracking clashes in the Grade 1s, it's not really a kind of punting thing, because it's head to head, unless you're trying to find something against the field. But if you had to push me, I'd be in Andrew's camp anyway and make it 2-1 to Blue Lord. And I do think personally I would have Blue Lord favourite. So
slight favourite?
Yeah, I'd have him slight favourite. Yeah, I'd probably just reverse the prices around, to be honest with you. I think he ran a really good race, and I just think he's an improving horse. So
right, so we're going to go to the second Grade 1 of the first day, and Andrew, I think a lot of people, you're synonymous with the Shack. The Shack is back. Are you gonna lump on?
Yeah, well, I'm also synonymous these days with the word justice, and I will be looking for justice. I'm actually quite torn in this race, because I am a massive fan of Allaho. I just thought his performance in the Ryanair was different gear. That had to take an awful lot out of him. Certainly, if you'd run the race yourself, you'd be absolutely knackered after it. The way he's put it all on the line. The form looks good. Fakir Duderee's come out and won the Melling Chase. Mr. Fisher just got touched off there the other day. He probably should have won against Frodon. So that form looks good. But I just thought Shakan Purswell, for some reason, just ran a little bit beneath himself at Cheltenham. Whether it was the hill, whether he just wasn't himself, I'm still trying to string that all together, but I think he has run a little bit beneath himself. I'd be taking him to get back to winning ways in this. That being said, if you're looking at it for value, I do think Nube Negra is overpriced at 6-1. He's a big price for a horse that's come second in a champion chase, and arguably is going to be more suited by a track like Punchestown than he would be Cheltenham. I don't know. I don't know whether I'd have a saver on him or not. I may do come the day. I'd be with Chacan Poursois over Allaho, though he's the proper 2-miler in this. For me, he's the champion chase winner in all but name. Like he's been the best 2-miler this year, but he just didn't win the champion chase. So I'm going to stick with him, and hopefully he gets the job done and provides a bit of justice.
A bit of justice for Shaq. Brian, you mentioned some of the English contingent coming over, and obviously the Skeltons have had an amazing end to the season. Do you kind of agree with Andrew about the Shaq, or are you going to go maybe with the English contingent?
No, I tend to agree. I think the race will run to suit him. To be honest, I think that, like we spoke about Allaho before, that he's by no risk at all. Obviously, the same sire as Epatante, and so there's no lack of speed in his pedigree, I suppose. That being said, I think he's probably going to take the race by the scruff of the neck, like he did in the Ryanair, and I think that Chacan just has more natural ability and has more the 2-mile speed than Allaho does to maybe pick him off in the middle of the race and just kind of see it out a bit better. I think he'd be more suited by Punchestown. I think he was only beaten a length and a half in the champion chase, and Cheltenham probably just found him out. I think that he'd be more suited to coming back to Punchestown. He's been here once. He absolutely rocked up in a Ryanair Novice. I think he bet Defi Desai by quite comfortably in the end. So, I mean, but like it's actually a lot bit better of a race than what the market suggests. I mean, we spoke like Nube Negra was second in the champion chase. I mean, probably a surprising second. A lot of people wrote off his chances and he performed brilliantly. Will that race take a lot out of him? He's had 6 weeks to get ready for this. So, I mean, there's no reason why he wrote one well. First flow seems to go better right-handed than left-handed anyway. He's a tremendous record going that way. And then he's like 16-1 in the 3 places race. That's probably the value you're looking for in a race like this. Like, I'm not a guy who would back a horse at 5-4. I think a Chacan Poursois will win. I probably might trust and see if Kim Bailey has anything up his sleeve left. I'm not sure whether First Flow will appreciate a lot better ground. But that being said, I mean, it could turn into a tremendous duel. But I think Allaho will dictate it, and Chacan will pick him off towards the end, and just might just have a bit more class up his sleeve to win over this distance.
Dan, do you give any opportunity to First Flow?
I do. I kind of agree that it's probably because of the top 2 in the market, so high profile and trained by Willie Mullins, that it's kind of like there's forgotten horses in the race. If you're asking between the top 2 and Allaho and Chacan Poursois, like Allaho was absolutely amazing, and I could have got Sam Crow and Mellon off the bridle on that ground. Do you know what I mean? And that's not a slide on Allaho. I think he is unbelievable at 2.5 miles. I just think 2 miles is different level in terms of speed, and Chacan Poursois, he didn't seem to take to Cheltenham, and I definitely think he underperformed, and the times kind of suggested it was a pretty poor time for the champion chase. We put the kettle on winning that. I think that he just didn't perform. He's probably well below par, and a flatter track, and considering he won very impressively here in Punchestown in his novice chase, to me I think he's guaranteed to kind of do the track because he has the track form. So over 2 miles, it's his trip. The question marks will be in Allaho. It's similar to Brian, the way it's going to pan out. Allaho will run. They'll kind of be with each other, and I just think Chacan will kind of have the turn of foot to possibly win. If you want one at a price, it's probably Willie Mullins' third horse here in Silas Emery. Like he didn't run well at Cheltenham. I don't think he's ran well at Cheltenham, to be honest with you, and maybe give him a squeak in each way kind of price. But again, I'm kind of almost like reaching for ones of prices. There seems to be like 3 jewels in these races. So again, it would be Chacan Poursois for me in this race.
Perfect. So we're gonna move on to maybe the meeting or the clash of the week, if you like. And we've had a couple of potential 2-horse races, probably none bigger than this, between Monkfish and Envoi Allen. And Andrew, I remember seeing it on Twitter and people were retweeting going, this is happening. It's actually going to happen at Punchestown. I mean, are we just going to be in for a real treat here?
Well, I fingers crossed hope so, because every time people do this and they build it up, this is the best race of the year, best race of the century. One of them tips up in the first 3 fences and we've got one of them left. So God hope that they both get round safe, both run their race, and we can see who is the better one. I'm in Envoi Allen's camp. It is
Yeah.
it is just
Could be good.
because they are two super horses. But look, Monkfish wasn't overly impressive in the RSA. Now his form with latest exhibitions very good from Leopardstown, but Envoi Allen's always looked like he's had more in the tank. People are going on that he won't be suited by 3 miles. He's bred to be a 3-miler. So I just think he has it in him, to be honest. Rachael's on him for the first time. Just get him jumping away. It's a 4-runner race. Just don't overcomplicate things. I'm sure Monkfish could well go out in front again. He seemed to be bone idle at Cheltenham when he went out in front there. So it was interesting whether they'll do the same tactics there. But no, I'm in Envoi Allen's camp. I've for the last year and a half, 2 years, whatever he's been on the block and his novice hurdles, novice chases, I've said he's been the best horse in training, and one fall isn't going to disrupt that for me. So I'm going to stick with him, and hopefully he can get back on the winning thread.
Do you agree with Andrew, Brian, that Envoi Allen is going to get his justice?
I do agree, yeah, because I said the only reason I said that was because a lot of people I spoke to this week and talk about this race think I'm mad saying that Envoi Allen will win. I don't know why, but I completely agree. Like, he was bought with one sole purpose, and that was to win the Gold Cup. And I mean, like, it was always said that way. I remember Gordon Elliott talking at a preview night for National Hunt season a couple of years ago, the year he won the Champion Bumper below in Leanahans, and this is what he said that this horse came into his yard to do, and obviously he's not there anymore, and that's the way it is. And look, you go back to Cheltenham, I mean, he wasn't, everyone knows that he just wasn't the horse he was. He was very fucking excited. He was very buzzy. He was kind of going down. He was a bit all over the place. He didn't jump that well the first 2 or 3 fences, then clattered into the fourth and fell. And that just happens. And I was reading an article during the week that they were down, somebody was doing a stable tour of Henry's. I can't remember exactly where I saw it, saying he's settled in a lot better. He seems to be jumping a lot better when he's out. And to me, that fills me with confidence. I mean, look, there's nothing to take away from the ability, like what we're seeing here. I mean, in life, you have to appreciate great sporting moments, and this is going to be hopefully this is going to be an absolutely amazing 4.5-5 minutes of a race. Like, Monkfish has undoubtedly tremendous ability, and if you were to say, if these two were to line up in a Gold Cup this season, you think that Monkfish, is the way he's ran, would be more suited to it. But I think in 3 miles on a faster track like Punchestown, on a bit harder ground, I think it plays to Envoi Allen's strengths. I think that in a small field won't suit Monkfish, as you said, because he gets out in front on his own and he can start to idle. He made an absolute bags of the last at Cheltenham. He made a bags of a few fences at Cheltenham. And it just, to me, to see that Envoi Allen has made one bad mistake in his career, and that was when he fell at Cheltenham. Other than that, he's been flawless over his fences. And Monkfish made 2 or 3 at Cheltenham that question marks me. Now, he was flawless at the Dublin Racing Festival, never put a foot wrong, won easily in hand. Like, it's going to be a tremendous horse race, but I do think Envoi Allen will win. I think the blend of speed and stamina he has is fantastic. He's a winner over 2. He's a 2-mile Grade 1 winner over hurdles. He has the perfect blend of what's needed for a 3-mile chaser. He's the perfect blend what's needed for a stayer going forward. I think he's a better jumper. I think a faster track at Punchestown will suit him in a race like this, and he's just going to sit in behind Monkfish, and I think he'll pick him off coming in, and he'll win.
Dan, you making it 3 out of 3?
Yeah, I can't. We're probably going to be the only podcast to have an 0-3 on Monkfish. Like, Jesus Christ. So when I saw Brian cheer, I went, oh no. But yeah, like I do think it's going to be justice for Envoi Allen, to be honest with you. And the most, exactly what Brian said, like, in terms of he made that mistake, and it was probably like the only mistake he's made over fences. And the way he, like, the replays, the way he was, like, he lost Jack Kennedy, he got up and he was like, come on, let's go. And Jack was already on the floor, and he almost like, oh my God, I made a mess of it. And I just think he'll be out for revenge. And kind of, the trainer comments kind of put me, like, in, it's a positive, like, that he's kind of jumped a lot better, where sometimes you kind of hear that and you're like, well, that still doesn't mean anything to me. It does, because it shows that he's got over his fall well, and he's jumping better, and he's kind of enjoying the game. And I just think he really will suit 3 miles on this track, on a flat track in Punchestown. And I just can't believe we're getting this clash now, because I like, when I saw it, I remember doing up an article, I didn't believe it was actually going to happen. And so for it to happen, fair play to Henry, and fair play to Woody for doing it, putting it on. And yeah, it's going to be 3-0 for Envoi Allen here on the podcast, which is mad stuff, lads. But that's justice for Envoi Allen.
Yeah, hopefully we get justice. So there's the 3 Grade 1s on Tuesday, the opening day, the Champion Chase Day. There's a few handicap hurdles in there. There's also the bumper. I'll go to you, Andrew. Do you fancy any other horse maybe at a bigger price for people listening?
Yeah, 2 free in the handicaps. The opening race, the 3:45 handicap hurdle, like Paul Flynn's horse and this Clever Currency. I think you might be able to get 7-8 to 1 on the day on him. I think he's an improving horse. He's a 4-year-old and he gets a bit of weight. And I'm going to take one more flyer in the 450, I believe it is, on Master McShee back in a handicap. He's a horse I've kind of followed over a cliff the last couple of times. He's been a little bit lifeless his last 2 starts, but he's back in a handicap now, and I think he could well take an awful lot of beating for Ian Power and Paddy Corkery.
Perfect. Brian?
Yeah, I had a look at the handicaps. Master McShee did appeal to me. All right, it'd be interesting to see. I don't think there's a price on him yet. That was one I kind of had picked out. One I also had picked out was in the bumper, the Land Rover bumper. It was a horse called Non-Binding, I think, trained by Sneezy Foster. He's a half-brother to Fernie Hollow. So I'd imagine that he will probably be near the top of the market. Jamie Cotter's book to ride him. I think that he'd be very interesting going into it. And there's also a horse in the last called Hey Johnny, and it's trained by Stuart Crawford, I think, but it's a half-brother to Sir Gerhard. So there are 2 breeding opportunities to go down. But the other one I kind of had a look at was in the 7 o'clock, the Kildare Hunt Club Father Sean Breen Memorial Chase for the Ladies Perpetual Cup. I think it's the Hunter's Chase.
You just wanted to say that the
cross
race
country. It's a horse called Saint Benedict, trained by Enda Bulger, who is the king of the banks at Punchestown, and Harry Swan has been booked to ride this. It was running a great race up at Downpatrick, I think, in a Hunter's Chase on Ulster National Day, and it fell at the last. It kind of would have been beaten in the end, but Enda Bulger knows how to get horses ready for this meeting, and he has a tremendous record here in this race. And I think that this has kind of been where he wanted to go. I mean, his record is 2-2-2-2-2-2 the last couple of times, or his form, should I say. So I think that he'll have a great chance in that. The Sean Breen, the cross country at 7 o'clock.
And just on that, like, Enniskillen is in this race, and he's ran like every Punchestown festival I've bet on anyway, and he's 16 years of age. So shout out to Enniskillen.
There you go. Master McShee is 12 to 1 for those listening in the 6 and the 450. Rather, so then we're going to go on to Wednesday, to the Gold Cup Day, the Ladbrokes Gold Cup. And we're going to have obviously a look at all the Grade 1 action. And there's the 520, which is the Irish Mirror, War of Attrition, Novice Hurdle, Grade 1. Andrew, what stands out in this one?
Not a whole pile, Sean, not going to lie. It's not a race. It's a competitive race, but just a hard race. I didn't like the Albert Bartlett form. I didn't think it was up to a whole pile. I'm not sure those horses are that brilliant. Vanillier was very good on the day. Whether he'll be able to back it up, I'm not so sure. Ashdale Bob's probably a horse I've gotten wrong an awful lot this year. Every time I like him, he does something wrong. Every time I take him on, he goes and wins. So I'm probably going to back him each way in this race. He's, I think, 9-10 to 1. I'd be taking on the horses in the Bartlett, the likes of Vanillier, Statler, Streets of Doyen. I wasn't sure it was up to a whole pile. So the likes of Ashdale Bob more appeal to me. I'm hoping to God Mouse Morris doesn't run Gentleman's Game. You just need to put him away for the season and bring him back next year over a fence. So Ashdale Bob at 10s will do me each way.
Brian, I'm going to ask you about Streets of Doyen. We obviously, me and you tipped it on the podcast and stuff, Streets of Doyen. Andrew's saying there about the Albert Bartlett form maybe not being strong, priced at 12 to 1, I think, for this. Do you give it any chance? Maybe
out of sort of loyalty, I might back him, but when you go and look at the race at Aintree last week, the form is not that strong. I do agree with that. Look, it's hard to know where he stands. I mean, I think the race at Cheltenham took a lot out of him. I'd be surprised if he runs. I think that Aintree probably took it out of him as well. And I just think running him in this would be an absolute waste. I'd put him away myself and give him a break out of this. He could run him. Who knows? He's a very talented horse. No reason why he can't run a big race. There is one in this race. When I was looking at it earlier on, I mean, I would kind of fancy a mare in this, and she was running in handicaps, and I just think that she might show ability to win this or to even go well in it. And it's one of Willie's. It's Lady Breffney. And the reason why I say that is because I looked at her form lines there earlier on, and look, she seemed to stay every yard of the 3 mile handicap, the mayor's final at Fairyhouse a few weeks ago, where she absolutely tore up the outside, chomping ground the whole way up, and stayed like a good thing and won by half a length to, I think she'd be Cross Hill in that. But if you go back through her form, I mean, like if you look at her first run of the season at Navan on the 5th of December, she was 4th in a race won by Flooring Porter, and second, obviously Flooring Porter smashed the boss's Oscar by 12 lengths, and Lady Breffney was about another half a length back. But you go on to her next race, she went to Punchestown, won. She went to Leopardstown then for the Dublin Race Festival and was 4th in the mayor's handicap, won by Heaven Help Us. She was only beaten 4 lengths. She was beaten 3 3/4 lengths by Tell Me Something Girl. Both of those horses won at Cheltenham. Mrs. Milner also ran in that race and fell. You go on then to a run at Limerick. She was 4th in a grade 3 behind Darren's Hope, behind a good mare of Mick Winters is called Sace Gold, only beaten 3 lengths again, and then absolutely seemed to stay every single yard of the trip at Fairyhouse. And I just think that she's getting £7 from horses here that seem to have had hard races at Cheltenham, have not followed up on it. And I'm willing to take a chance on that. And if you go back through the kind of season and you look at the form of some of the races, like the likes of, as we said, Torrey Graf, he was very poor at Cheltenham in the Albert Bartlett. Like Gallopin Des Champs, Martin Pipe winners have a good record in this race. I'd sooner go with him than Statler. We've seen the form of that Leopardstown race at the Dublin Racing Festival, one for Dan here, the Nathaniel Lacey's and Partner Solicitors Novice Hurdle or whatever it's called, the big long one. Like you've seen the first 7 or 8 in that race, like Gallier de Mainel, Gentleman's Game, Statler, Fakira, Ganapati, have all not ran that well. And you go down to the horses who were 9th and 10th, and they were Ashtail, Bob, and Vanillier, and they've come out and won since. So it's hard to know how to really assess it. So I'm willing to take a chance at Lady Breffney at a big price. I think she'd be about 16 or 20 to 1. I'd sooner do that in this race than say I'm absolutely banking on a horse at the top of the market. Like Vanillier could go out and win again. No reason why he can't, but I'll take the chance.
Dan, obviously there's a few Cheltenham Festival winners in this. Any of them kind of take a fancy?
Yeah, I think it's mainly because I didn't back him at Cheltenham and the Get Out, Gentleman de Me, as opposed to Gallium de Champs. But I was very impressed with his win against Langer Dan. Like, and just for those, remember watching that commentary, and like I was like, because my horse was gone, so I was just watching the race properly, like neutrally, and the commentary kept going, Langer Dan's coming through. I was like, he's about 12 lengths back. What do you just talk about the horses at front? Like, so it was like English were desperate for a winner. But Langer Dan, like, I think he kind of books the trend with English horses. I think he's a good horse, and the fact that Gallium de Champs beat him, I think like the step up to 3 miles, I think it's a kind of progressive. I kind of like a horse, starts at 2 miles, like most horses, wins at 2.5 miles. It's kind of been the aim for him, and then now they're going to kind of keep going and push him at 3 miles. The fact they're setting him to here, a bit of money from already, Willie Mullins, it's a weak enough grade 1. I kind of like agree with the lads in the Albert Bartlett form, to be honest with you. So I'm willing to take a flyer. Well, not a flyer, like he's second fab, but like Gallium de Champs at around 4 to 1. I think he's going to run his race at 3 miles. I think he's going to improve for 3 miles, and yeah, that'd be the bet for me in this race.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to move on then to the Gold Cup. Well, the Punchestown Gold Cup and the feature of Wednesday, the feature of one of the features of the National Hunt season. I mean, Brian, I'm just looking here at the market. Obviously, some big names, some names that are very close to people's heartstrings, and obviously Envoi a couple of years ago with Ruby Walsh, a massive moment in Irish sport. To see where the winner's going to come from, can you pick one out for us?
I don't know. I think this is it's a cracking race. It always is a cracking race, but it's very hard to assess this. Look, we've seen before how horses have kind of underperformed at bigger targets and then come to this. Now, I'm not saying that this is a small target, but I'm saying horses that have been aimed at Cheltenham Gold Cups and maybe Irish Gold Cups and things like this have come and won this race. No more so than Envoy. I mean, and it's hard to know how would he ran in that Gold Cup when he fell, and then he went to Aintree and won, and then came and won this, beating Album Photo. So, I mean, I don't know. Minel Indo is obviously the top class horse of the race. It's hard to know where Album Photo is going to find the 5.5 lengths that he was betting the Gold Cup in this, and obviously Aplutar is not going, so you don't really know how to judge it. Look, I mean, I'd probably be in the Minel Indo camp. I know that's boring. He's 7 to 4. He's not. That's the way it is. But I mean, if you go on just rare form, he probably has the class. At a value, look, Mellon is probably going to place. It's usually where he finishes anyway. He won't finish 1. He'll probably finish 2, 3, 4, or 5. although he was pulled up in the Ryanair. I think Fakir Dudery did not have that hard of a race at Aintree. I think he won it quite handsomely. And was second in that. I think he finished second in the Ryanair chase behind Allaho after him completely dominating the field. And he's always suggested that 3 Mile would be somewhere where he'd like to go. So I on better ground, I'd probably sooner back him at 10-1, let him jump away, see how he gets on, then back any of them at the top. As I said to you, look, there's no doubt Album Photo is a tremendous horse, or Manila Indo, like there's 3 Gold Cups between them. But Album Photo has gone to this race after winning at Cheltenham, or after running at Cheltenham even, and has been beaten in it. So it's hard to know where to go with that. So look, I don't really have a strong view on it. It's going to be a tremendous race. I'll probably watch it, but if I'm to back one, I'd probably back Fakir Dudery at 12 or 14-1 each way, and that'll keep me happy.
Is Alboom going to get another day in the sun, Andrew?
Bloody well hope so, yeah. I will be backing him. I just think he might be a bit fresher than Manila Indo. Manila Indo's had a hard enough season at this stage, and you are coming to that stage of the season. Who's had the hard runs, who's had the hard year. Album Photo had equally as hard a race at Cheltenham. I get that, but he's been trained all year with 3 races in mind, and this is the third of the 3. So he's covered less miles, and also people say he's maybe perhaps not that durable because of the way they've ended up campaigning him, but people forget his Novice Chase campaign where he came second in a flow gas, beaten a half length, then would have placed in an RSA, won at Fairyhouse, and should have won at Punchestown in the race that Paul Townend ran out in at the last, which never really got cleared up. But it just goes to show that he is quite a durable horse when they campaign him that way. They've just campaigned him differently. I thought he ran a stormer in the Gold Cup. I think the 2 at the top are well clear here, actually. And I do think it's between the 2 of them, and I just think Album Photo may be a little bit fresher. But I do get the angle that Manila Indo is the up-and-comer. He's a horse I like a lot. I had a saver on him in the Gold Cup. I think he's an excellent horse, but I've got to stay true to my loyalties here and be like me backing against Aston Villa to win a game of football. You've just got to put your hand on your heart and put your money down. So Album Photo to win the Punchestown Gold Cup.
Dan?
I'm laughing because I do the same with Arsenal myself. I'm also laughing. My Gold Cup record's appalling. And so I doubt my Punchestown Gold Cup record's much better. I actually nearly made the case for Envoy myself earlier today. So this is why I kind of beat myself up going through these races, these Grade 1 races where you've all the form out in front of you. There's nothing to hide. Go and look and find the winner. And I always tend to struggle. But I've kind of turned on this a little bit, and I think I'm just gonna side with Manila Indo because he's the way he won at Cheltenham and when he won the Albert Barton and then followed up in Punchestown. I just think he's on a similar trajectory this season, albeit a lot higher class. And the way he won that Gold Cup, that Gold Cup was run, I thought everyone, the top 3 ran their races, and I thought Album Photo was thereabouts from his best. Absolute hard ran a cracker, and the trip really suited him. And Manila Indo was just unbelievable, and the ground is going to be around the goodish side. I just think it's a little bit too quick for Album Photo. Obviously everyone remembers the Punchestown Gold Cup a couple of years ago, like you mentioned, with Ruby Walsh and Envoy beating Album Photo. That's what kind of got me on the Envoy a little bit, but I do think Manila Indo's a little bit more clear, particularly on this ground, which I know there's meant to be a little bit of showers, but realistically it'll still be good ground or very close to good ground. So it's kind of tough usually for a Gold Cup horse to win the Punchestown Gold Cup. We saw it again with Album Photo a couple of years back, but I am pretty kind of confident. I know it's boring again, but I think Manila Indo is a good price here, although I always seem to back him, Manila Indo, at the wrong times. I go back to my Leopardstown in February, didn't back him for the Gold Cup. I have a feeling that could happen again, but I'm going to go back in on Manila Indo, I think, for the Punchestown Gold Cup. I just think he's the best horse in the race with conditions. No reason the conditions won't suit him any more or less than the other horses in the race. So.
Perfect. And if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, make sure to get your comment in who you think is going to win the Gold Cup. And the final Grade 1 on Wednesday is the bumper. This is again another interesting one. So Gerhard Crut, both 13-8 at the moment. Would you separate them, Andrew, if you could?
No, there probably should be joints or maybe Sir Gerhard a half point. ahead. I don't think there's a whole pile between them. It's not probably a race I'm going to have a massive bet in or anything like that. I do think Sir Gerhard could well uphold the Cheltenham form personally. There's a couple in there at prices that I'll be very interested in. Certainly as long-term prospects, I think Three Stripe Life might get a little bit closer this time round, a bit more streetwise, and also a horse to keep the right side of this going forward. Whether he runs in this race or he's in a few of the other bumpers in the Punchestown week is a Stuart Crawford horse called O'Toole. He's been bought by Simon Munir and Isaac Swade. He won a Ferryhouse bumper by half the track. I think he could be a very, very good horse. He's in the betting for this at around 25-1, which would indicate he may well go somewhere else, because I suspect he'd be a 10-1, 12-1 shot if he was to turn up here. He's a nice type of horse to stay the right side of, but probably not a race I'm going to have a bet in. But with the top two, I'd side with Sir Gerhard.
Brian?
If I was to pick between the top two, it'd be Sir Gerhard for me as well. I think that he's a faster horse, and I think around a faster track like Punchestown, it'll suit him even more than Cheltenham. I mean, like, and people are saying that, if you ran the race again and Paul Townend changed his tactics, that Culcut might have won the race. I don't think he would have. I think Sir Gerhard is a much faster horse, dictated the race in the front, made his move at the top of the hill. Rachael gave it a great ride and sped up towards the thing and just held on up the top of the hill. I think on the flatter track he could win by 2 lengths, 3 lengths away from him. I think Kilcrud is the shape of a stayer, not doubting his raw ability, tremendously talented, and ate away the ground at Cheltenham and stayed every yard of it, but was beaten half a length. I just think Sir Gerhard is faster. I think it'll suit him more at Punchestown than it did at Cheltenham, and I think he'll win. But I've only had one bet at Punchestown this week so far, and it's actually in this race. And you can go through it. Like, there are some good types in this. We've said, like, O'Toole is a lovely looking horse. Dicer Dynamo's a lovely looking horse. Ginto was sent off 4-9 in his season debut and was turned at Navan, I think, and was beaten. And then went up, or at Ferryhouse, should I say, 4-9 and was beaten. And then went to Navan and won only a couple of weeks ago at 5-6 or something. But I backed a horse in this trained by Paul Fahey called Lake Winnipesaukee. And I backed it.
You want to say that after a few points?
Yeah, no. He gets into this race. He's only a 4-year-old. There's only 2 4-year-olds entering in this race, and he's one of them. So he immediately gets, I think he gets something like £14 or something from the rest of them, which is interesting. If you go back to Leopardstown on the 7th of March, the Saturday, which would have been the Sunday before Cheltenham started, and there was a bumper and a young jockey took the wrong track and was a mile ahead of the field, it was this horse. He was a mile, and he absolutely was clearing away in a Leopardstown bumper and would have absolutely hacked up, only for, I can't remember the young lad's name. It was a Fahey fella, Aaron Fahey went out on the wrong track. He took the chase course and completely ruined his chances. The horse that won that bumper was none other than Dark Raven, who went to Ferryhouse and absolutely hosed up in a sales bumper by 11 lengths or something like that. And I mean, this Lake Winnipesaukee would have won that race easily if you look back at it. I mean, he was absolutely he was putting up this tremendous looking gallop in front and would have just kept it on going tonight. I don't see how anything could have got near him. And I watched the race again earlier on, and I still think that nothing could have got near him. And I think if he turns up in this, carrying that 4-year-old weight, it could. I just think he's interesting. I backed him at 20-1. I think you can get something like that now out about him. I'm not saying he'll win, but I mean, he seems to have massive potential, and he's going to run in this race. And if he can go up to the front and kick on, as I said to you, he mightn't win. The other two are absolutely phenomenal type horses, as are some of the others in this race. But I just thought he was very, very interesting. And if he doesn't run, no problem, I'll take my money back. But he's something now that I'd be keeping an eye on going forward.
Perfect. Dan, would you separate Sir Gerhard or Kilcrut?
I think I'll be back in Lake What is it, Brian? What lake?
Winnipesaukee, I think Jerry Hannon called it. That's what I call it. It's a lake in Canada, I think, if my memory serves me right.
That's good research. I'll happily take that now, to be honest with you. If you gave me a choice between top two, I think the two lads went Sir Gerhard. I would as well. Like, I think if you did run the race, Paul Townend could possibly get closer, but that's the benefit of hindsight as well. Like, do you know what I mean? So, like, if you ran any race differently, you'd have a different go at it, but it doesn't, mean that Sir Gerhard wasn't a deserving winner like I thought he was. I would personally was going to go for Three Stripe Life here. Now I do think he'll improve more and more the more races he has. Whether that's probably might need a hurdle, next season, maybe a horse for next season. But I guess the experience of the champion bumper in Cheltenham's not going to be a hindrance to him here. Thought a lot went wrong for him, to be honest with you. I did well to get fourth, to be fair. But yeah, I was going to take a chance of maybe 10-1 because, the top two in the market, kind of short enough for me. But I think I'll be back in Lake Winnipesaukee after the case there for Brian there. I thought it was a pretty good case. So yeah, Three Side Life is my selection.
It's in New Hampshire.
Very good. There you are.
Yeah. Could come in at a big price. A few handicaps on Gold Cup Day. Anyone with any kind of fancies? Andrew, have you anything for us?
Yeah, again, I'll give you 2. 4:15, the auction hurdle. I can't see how Eurotf doesn't win for Willie Mullins. He's his only entry in the race. I think he's above this grade. I think the owner's family would mean that I think Aubrey McMahon will end up riding him, which is no issues. He's won twice on him before. And also in the 4:50, the Louis Fitzgerald Hotel hurdle. If Get My Drift runs there for Mouse Morris, I think he'll take an awful lot of beating. I think he's a nice horse going forward for JP, and he'll be a horse I'll be watching next year going over a fence, hopefully. I think he's quite nice. He won at Leopardstown Maid now for Christmas. So those two would be my 2 better bets on Wednesday's card.
Brian?
Yeah, I didn't really have too much of a fancy on any handicaps on Wednesday. One I thought was very interesting is in the Guinness handicap chase at 7 o'clock. Tom George is sending Black Up over, and Tom Scudamore has been booked to ride him. Now, look, there's some very good horses in this race, but I mean, he was 7th in the Gold Cup, and if you go back through some of his form, like he has down the years had some decent form. I think he ran in the Galway Plate at one stage, or I'm thinking that was Black Corton, but I just think he's interesting taking some of these on. But I think Live, Love, Laugh is an entry in that race, and if he runs, I'd be having a few quid on him. After how good he was in the top him, I thought he was excellent. And he comes into this race. I think he's only rated 149, and at the moment there's about 6 or 7 horses ahead of him in the entry. So if they all stay in and he runs off that way, so I'd be definitely having a few quid on him. But I just think that Black Up is interesting that they're sending them over into a handicap like this. That's all I have.
Any quick ones, Dan?
No, I just thought it was interesting that Castle Grace Paddy has been running over Grade 1, Grade 2s for most of his career. Really, has been entered in the Guinness Handicap Chase at 7 o'clock. Just thought it might be a little bit interesting if he is declared, because they haven't really gone down the handicap route with him for a while. So, sometimes I kind of like it. When just because of the handicap doesn't mean the lower weights are going to be ahead of their mark or anything all the time. So, could be a graded horse in a handicap, albeit maybe not the best graded horse in the world. But I just thought it was an interesting entry to keep an eye on anyway, if he is declared.
Perfect. So we're going to move on to Thursday. 6 Grade 1s left to preview. We'll fly through a few of these. Moving on to Thursday, the Ladbrokes Champion Stayers Hurdle. Florin Porter, obviously, who was unbelievable at Cheltenham, heads the market at 15-8. I'll go to you, Brian, as you're supping a point. Is Florin Porter gonna put foot to the floor?
Great segue, Sean.
Well, look, I don't really have a strong view in this race, but I hope he wins, because for the simple reason that Johnny Moore had a lot to sacrifice for the week at Cheltenham, and he should be back to ride this horse Thursday. He should be in. So for that simple reason, I hope he does win, that Johnny Moore can get his big day in the Suriname. It took a lot of guts for him to get up on that Thursday morning at Cheltenham and tell Gavin he didn't want to ride it, and Danny was the guy. And fair play to him, and it served out. There's a few this race is interesting a little bit. I don't really have a strong view in it, but Ronald Pump is an entry. He was a half a length beaten by Honeysuckle in the Hatton's Grace when he was closing all the time, and was a massive fancy for the Stayers Hurdle, only to be ruled out by injury. Has an entry to come back. He's 8-1 best price. We have Livnagar Oscar is in there. But there's a horse entered in this race called Classical Dream. Now, obviously, Classical Dream won a Supreme Novices Hurdle for Willie Mullins and was Ruby Walsh's last Cheltenham Festival winner. And we've seen Willie before with horses throwing them in over 3 mile when they've been regarded as kind of 2.5 milers and been speedier types, and have hacked up and won races like these. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Obviously, the chairperson of the Mrs. Milner fan club, Mrs. Milner, has a run in this, so that's another one to keep an eye on. I think it's a very interesting contest. I think Heaven Help Us is an entry in it. It could turn into a very, very intriguing race. I hope that Flora and Porter wins, but if all these horses in front of me are declared, you could have an absolute nightmare trying to pick which one you're going to back, because you can make a case for loads of them. But they're the few that caught my eye now when I was looking at it.
Denise Foster has a couple in it as well, Andrew. Any of them? I know Fury Road is one of her strong ones.
Yeah, he was a horse I quite liked for Cheltenham. He let me down. I didn't think he ran very well. He was never travelling, didn't jump very well. Yeah, tough race. Flooring Porter, like, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm just one of these people that he's just going to keep winning and I'm going to keep not believing it. But I don't know whether it's because I don't want to believe it or whether or what the story is. But no, he wouldn't quite be for me, just at the price. I am very interested in Ronald Pump. He's a nice horse, Ronald Pump. Now, he'd break your heart because he wins very, very little. But he always runs his race. And he's a solid each way bet in these types of races. And he's always been I've always been a massive fan of his. Mrs. Milner, I got the impression that they were 60-40 that they were going to run in this race rather than the mare's race, because you're getting the £7 allowance. So whether people want to go in on that, I'd have thought, I'm a massive fan of Mrs. Milner and I'm an even bigger fan of Paul Nolan, but I'd have thought she'll end up being a little bit outclassed at this level. But no harm throwing her in at the deep end, see how good she is. You can get 20-25 to 1. Certainly I'll be having a few quid on, but geez, I'd back any Paul Nolan horse, to be honest. So
you were at his stable there, for those who don't follow you, during the week or last weekend, was it?
Yeah, last weekend I was invited down to help out with some video work and got a stable tour while I was at it, and some absolute legends down there, like the likes of Fitzhenry and stuff like that. Absolute legend. I've never won on him, like, but absolute legend.
Cost you a fortune.
Oh yeah, big time.
Runs his race.
But no, Mrs. Milner, I'd love her to run well, but I think she might be a little bit short. So Ronald Pump each way for me, but he wouldn't be for the faint-hearted because God, he barely ever gets his head in front.
Dan?
Yeah, I'm like Andrew in the sense that I was against Flooring Porter. Like I broke that Christmas race down to make the case for the storyteller, and when you go into a race to make a case for a horse, you're going to eventually make the case for a horse. And just because Flooring Porter ran a slowly ran race doesn't mean he couldn't have won a fastly run race, which is something I had to figure out the hard way. Apologies to all you storyteller backers in the stairs. Although Paddy Power were paying 5 places on the day and you did come 5th, just saying. For all you haters out there, but Flooring Porter, for me, I just think, again, he's the best horse in the race, and maybe this is why I keep losing money in Punchestown every year. Back a lot of favourites based on Cheltenham form, but I genuinely do think that was a very impressive stayers hurdle performance from Flooring Porter, and he's been a very underrated horse. So, like, there's a lot. It's similar to the stayers hurdle in Cheltenham in the sense that there's a lot of horses in the field. I don't think there's a lot of particularly good horses or any horse personally that could be Flooring Porter. So, for me, like I've been on the Ronald Pump bandwagon before. It's not fun. A lot of seconds. And the storytellers in the race. I presume he'll be going here as opposed to, I think, the Gold Cup as well. He's entered in as well. But for me, it's the Flooring Porter.
Perfect. So get your comments in as well. I'm just going to read one out from Shane. I'd watch a video of Andrew Blair reading out the contents of the phone book and I'd still find it entertaining. He's a class act.
Get it out, Andrew. Get the phone book out.
I can tell you it'll be a very boring video. It'll be a very boring video, that.
So we're going to move on. Still on Thursday, the Ryanair Chase and Ergamine 2-5 at the moment. Captain Guinness 7-2. Brian, I mean, an Ergamine at 2-5. I mean, it's kind of hard not to have at least one eye on it.
Oh, if he runs, he wins this race by 10 lengths. It's simple as that. I genuinely do not think anything in this race can beat him. It's you can't even analyse it. Will he run? Who knows? He was entered in that Ryanair Gold Cup at Ferryhouse right up until the last minute and was pulled out. So that was a bit disappointing, obviously. So I don't know whether he is fit or he's not fit. I haven't been looking at anything that Willie has put up online recently. So hopefully he does run. He's a class act. He'll win this race by 10 lengths. If he doesn't run, I'll back Janadil. He thought he was very good in the Ryanair Gold Cup. I'd let him take his chance over 2 mile. But nothing in this. Like, Embittered was sent off favours for that Sky Pirate race, the Johnny Henderson Grand Annual at Cheltenham. Proves he has 2 mile and speed ability. Was going very well when he fell. I mean, could well turn up in this and run a big race, but it's very hard to oppose an Ergamine if he runs in this. He'll just go around, jump and win by 5 lengths to the least of it, I'd say.
Andrew, simple as that, is it?
Yeah, it'll be a race I'll be sipping a beer in, to be honest, and won't be having a bet. I think Energamine wins, and I'm trying to convince myself to stop betting without the favourite in these races because they're minefields without. I've backed Captain Guinness over a cliff. Realistically, I will back him on Thursday, but for no real reason. He's an absolute idiot of an horse. He's got plenty of ability, but God, he is an idiot. But yeah, no, I think Energamine's the best horse in this and will win.
And echo what the lads are saying.
Yeah, like Willie Mullins was actually, he said he was pretty much ready to go with an Energamine for Ferryhouse. He just didn't think it was fair to rush him back, considering when the injury happened, he thought he might be out for the season. So that's the reason they're running here. Energamine wins. And just on the betting without thing, I completely echo what Andrew says. I've been fingers burnt so many times. Just thinking back to when Altior won his last champion chase, Min was 2-1 without the favourite, like an absolutely cracking price. And Ruby Walsh decided to ride him to win the race, which is the way, obviously, he rode him differently. I think it was held up, wasn't he? And he came 6th, and I was absolutely sick because I think that was my nap of the festival. So betting without markets, I stay away from them personally because it's just a different ball game altogether. But Energamy wins.
Perfect. There's again, like most days, good few handicap hurdles in there. I go to you, Brian. Any kind of big prices that you can try and trawl out for us?
It's very. It's a very sort of, I don't know what way to say it. It's a very hard day to back anything apart from those grade ones. I mean, the Mayor's Novice race is very interesting. The listed race, I mean, there's a couple of great entries in it. Galois, Mount Leinster Gold is an entry. Global Equity is an entry. Royal Illusion as an entry. The West Awaits as an entry. And of course, we have the Monkey Communications Latouche Cup Cross Country Chase. And I see that, I just saw a video the other day that Cruz Linen was been sent to this race, who ran in the Ulster National, won a veterans chase at Navan, is trained by Denise Foster, owned by Camilla Sharples. I think that he was there the other day schooling over these fences. I'd be very intrigued to see how he gets on. I thought he would run well at the Ulster National. Maybe was found out a little bit. He's had a bit of time off to get ready for this. But look, I mean, you have some class, like Shady Operators running in this, obviously another end of Bulger specialist around this parts. Some Neck ran very well at Cheltenham, albeit beaten 12, 17, 18 lengths by Tiger Roll, but he wouldn't be in the same league as those guys. But he doesn't have an opposition like that in this race. I thought he ran really, really well. Stand Up and Fight. Look, probably would have won a Hunter's Chase probably should have won a Hunter's Chase at Ferryhouse. Just didn't see it out in the end, and Solomon Grundy kind of pipped him. He could be interested in stepping up even further to form. I don't know. I mean, it's like everything else. Josie's Orders is coming back, I think, to have another crack at this. He's 13 years of age. He loves this sort of test over these type of fences. I think he won a race at 100-1 over hurdles at Cork only a couple of weeks ago, so it still shows that he has some ability there. So, I mean, he'd be very interested coming into this, but I mean, I wouldn't be saying now I'd be having an absolute sure bet now on anything in handicap on Thursday here.
Andrew?
Yeah, I'll be backing some Neck in the Latouche. I think he'll be a good each-way bet. I thought he ran a super race at Cheltenham, considering he didn't jump very well. And I've got a very strong one, actually, in the 340. Now, I'm sure he's going to be a horse that will have a few entries throughout the week, so I'm going to back him wherever he goes. Gavin Cromwell's horse, 5 Helmets. I still think there's an awful lot of juice in his handicap mark of 121. He's won the last twice. He's hacked up the last twice, actually. His jumping is beginning to get better. He likes good ground. He was an 80 rated horse on the flat, and I think he'll win wherever he turns up.
Dana, any fancy?
No, none for me on the Thursday. A lot of races now without prices and stuff, so not just nothing there.
Nothing there. Right, we're going to move on to Friday. I'm going to rattle through a few more of these. The Champion Hurdle Day, the Paddy Power Champion Hurdle, and a day full of big races, with obviously the Paddy Power Champion Hurdle being the feature. I'll go to you, Brian. I mean, there's your classical dream is in there again in the entries anyway, if it doesn't run. But I mean, if Honeysuckle turns up, is it just going to be the Rachael show again?
Oh yeah, I think it will be. I don't think that anything can overturn the form from Cheltenham. The only one that I think has natural ability that could beat it is Goshen, because purely for the reason that Gary Moore came out after the race. Now I think he was making excuses, so I don't know, but he came out and said that Cheltenham isn't his place. He doesn't like it here, blah blah blah. Even though he was going to win the Triumph by 10 lengths the year before, I didn't really believe that. So I don't know how much ability he has left. A lot of people thought that he was an absolute shorting in that champion hurdle, and obviously all of us here kind of disagreed with that. I think Honeysuckle will win. Absolutely no question about it. What can beat him, or beat her, should I say? I don't know. I wouldn't be touched to have a bet really in this race. Look, I don't know how good of a race Jason the Militant was running at Aintree the last day. I know he was in front, and Rachael obviously fell off him. Will he come back to sort of good effect in this? He probably will run him, because as a second string, or even his third string, because he also has Aspire Tower in there, who Ram credit in the champion hurdle. I mean, he was obviously smashed by Honeysuckle, but he was 3 lengths behind Sharjah and a length behind Epitante. Like, it's not bad form, but I mean, I'm not pushed to have too much of a bet in this. Bouverdaire has an entry in it, which I think is interesting. It'd be great if he came back over and ran to see him. He's an absolute legend of a horse for JP. I don't think he will, because Epitante could probably run it, but Honeysuckle will win. Simple as that.
This one, yeah, Brian. I was just going to say, Andrew, is this one of the stories of the week again? Honeysuckle, and just like how many times more is she just going to absolutely romp it?
Exactly. Look, I've tried to take her on so many times. Finally came to my senses at Cheltenham, and she still went in even with the weight of my money on her. So she must be some horse. I'm going to go for the same forecast that I went for at Cheltenham and was successful with, Honeysuckle to beat Sharjah. I think that's the way to get a decent price in this. I can't see any reason why he won't run another good race in behind, but no, this Honeysuckle is super. Like, it's horses like her that makes the debate. You know, people then start coming up and saying, "Oh, why are mares getting £7?" It's because of horses like Honeysuckle. Now, the majority of mares are stink, you know, and need the £7. So you only get a couple like Honeysuckle that will end up making it look like a fool. But I can't see any reason why she doesn't win.
Dan?
Yeah, like, you can get down a rabbit hole to make us, you know, the Goshen rabbit hole. Like, I think Honeysuckle will win personally, but I'd be very interested in if Goshen can do what if he doesn't get distracted like he did at Cheltenham. Like, people forget he just kind of wandered. It is a right-handed track. It should suit him a bit better. Gary Moore is a great man for excuses at the best of times. He's given the excuses there. Is, you know, the newer track better for Goshen, the older track at Cheltenham? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. If Goshen, like, if he can stay with it would be just interesting to see what we wanted at Cheltenham, where Goshen kind of takes off, tracks the leaders, then takes off, and Honeysuckle tracks, and then we'll have a race. But like, yeah, you want the solid horse. A Honeysuckle, she'll probably win it. It's probably for me a non-bet race, but I look forward to Goshen. I do want to see, like, that that Triumph performance still gets me every time and sucks me in every time. And well, albeit I didn't back him in the champion hurdle, so I'm not a complete lunatic. A right-handed track. Yeah, stranger things. Albeit Honeysuckle, she's great. Yeah, so it will be Honeysuckle. I'm just saying, Goshen, I'm looking forward to the race more than anything, because if he can lead, you just never know. But yeah, Honeysuckle should win.
There we get what Peter Punson said for
Peter
that have him on Twitter.
I want what Dan said clipped on Twitter there, please. Like, Goshen this, Goshen that.
Dan will be delighted to hear that Goshen's sort of victor from the jaws of defeat, Burning Victory, is going to be running in the Mayor's Champion Hurdle the next day. So I'm sure he'll be having a few pound on that as well.
Well, I'm going to double it up, I think.
Double it up.
Yeah.
The relatable doubles.
Double it up. We'll move on then. The second grade one on Friday, the Alana Holmes Champion Novice Hurdle, grade 1 over 2 mile 4. It's one of those races. Just even looking at the entries for, obviously, Appreciator was entered into it, not running, as you said. Brian, do you see anyone from the entries?
I'm going to say 2 words here, and 2 words only. Bob Ollinger. Move on. Bye-bye.
We've a comment in here.
There's nothing that can beat this thing, honest to God. I mean, completely, like, there's nothing in that race.
It's got over his 2 words,
of Bob Ollinger that can win that. So, Bob Ollinger, bye-bye.
Is it a case of how many lengths, Andrew?
Yeah, well, it all depends whether Appreciated runs or not. I don't know whether he will run or not. I suspect not. If he was, I'd back Appreciated over Bob Olinger. But other than that, if he doesn't run, Bob Olinger will be. I think this will be a 5-6 runner race. Bob Olinger will be 4 or 5s on, and the other horses would want to be starting today to have any chance of beating them, because the two of them are light years ahead. Like they're a furlong clear on form of all the other Irish novices. So, if I'd love the two of them to run against each other because it'd be some match. But I can't see it happening, and as a result, Bob Olinger wins by many lengths.
Yeah, Dan, I was going to say, is it 2 words for you as well?
Yeah, 2 words, but I'll just unappreciate it. He, like Willie Mullins said, he was 100% running, and I mean, saw the comments today to remind myself, 100% running in the Econ Merchant Solutions Champion Novice Hurdle on Tuesday. Just wanted to say that, but the fact that he wasn't declared suggests that, like, that's surely going to suit him better, not up against Bob Olinger, and the fact that if he's not really right for Tuesday, the chance of him being right for Friday. So on that basis, yeah, if you can make an argument, throw Bob Olinger in your multiples of 4 to 6.
Sorry, were your 2 words there Appreciated or Bob Olinger? Clarify that just for the tape.
Bob Olinger. Don't. But yeah, I can't. I'm similar to Andrew. I can't see him get declared. So
right. Any fancies from you guys for Friday? In some of the hurdles or the novice hurdles as well. I'll go with you, Andrew. Any fancy?
No, tricky this far out, Sean. For Friday, Saturday, it's very hard. You haven't got even 5-day decks, so I'm sure we'll get stuck into them come the time. There's a few tasty handicaps on Friday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday even. So hopefully we'll find a winner or two come closer to the time.
Okay, so it's moving on to Saturday, the final day's action of the festival. 2 Grade 1s versus the Coolmore Kew Gardens Irish EBF Any Power Mares Champion Hurdle. Grade 1, 2 mile, 4 furlongs. Dan, maybe just a quick mention on Any Power. The sheer mention of the name, I'm sure.
Or Any Power, Concertista.
Yeah.
Yeah, I nothing really to say about Concertista, to be honest with you. I still don't think about it. It's something I just go about my life or my business for 3 or 4 weeks, and someone mentions her name, and instead of going, oh yeah, I'm over that, it's kind of hits it, like I already mentioned on this podcast before. I had to go for a walk. I get it just for it was a bit of crack, kind of looking in different houses, wondering if anyone catch the eye and kind of give someone a nod. I just thought I'd find loads of people on the Concertista walk with me, but there was no one out. But yeah, like I don't think I'd even attempt to get my money back here. I'll let her run. She should have won the Mayor's Hurdle, shouldn't she? Simple as.
Yeah. Any fancies for you in this, Andrew?
It wouldn't be one of my stronger ones. I'd probably play Stormy Ireland in it each way. 6-1. It's not a great each way price. I got myself in a bit of a rabbit hole. I was on another live stream this evening, and I got talking about Paul Nicholls, English trainers. And I went off on a long rant. But look, this horse is 3 stone better under Willie Mullins' care than Paul Nicholls. For whatever reason that is, I'm not so sure. But she was very good at Ferry House the last day in a Grade 2. Beating French Dynamite, who's a horse I quite like of Mouse Morris's. She gets an easy enough lead out in front. She could make an awful lot of these work for it. Concertista needs to be back at 2 miles, I think. I've been beating that drum for a long old time, and I will continue to do it until they actually see sense. So Stormy Ireland for me, but not one of my stronger ones.
Brian, Concertista at 11 to 8, would that interest you in any way?
No, not an 11-day backer. Unfortunately, I'm on the Stormy Ireland train as well. I had a nice few quid in her at Ferry House the last. I thought she was very interesting coming back to Willie Mullins, and it was a great training performance to get her back looking like at her best. And I just this is actually it's actually a cracking looking race if a lot of these run. I mean, Sky Ace was very good winning that whatever that Irish, that Mayor's Novice Hurdle final or whatever it's called, another race, a massive, absolutely huge long name that Dan will love. But I think Shark Handling came out that morning and said that she was an absolute sure thing and told everybody to back her, and lo and behold, she came up and won. And he's very good on social media, and he had a lot of videos up at Sky Ace the other day saying Punchestown is where we're going, and I think she'll run well again and this sort of thing. But Stormy Ireland on ratings is the second highest rated horse in the race. Like Constitution rated 153 and Stormy Ireland's rated 148. So there's not much between them. Like there's only £5. And look, I kind of tend to agree with what Andrew's saying. I think Concertista is way more. I think she's much better over 2 Mile. I mean, she shows such. I don't know. I just get that vibe off her. I think that she is a 2 miler, and for that reason, I would take her on with Stormy Ireland. But look, if Tell Me Something Girl runs in this race, she could throw a serious banner into the works because she's very interesting. Was very good winning that Mayor's Novice event at Cheltenham. I don't think she's allowed to run in the Mayor's Novice event here because she is a Grade 1 winner. So she'll have to, if she is to run anywhere at Punchestown, she'll have to run in this or one of the other open hurdles throughout the week. But look, I mean, there's some very interesting types in this. Obviously, Echoes and Rain isn't going to run. Lorena has an entry in it. I don't know why.
I saw that actually. Yeah, that's mad.
I don't know why she has an entry. I don't think she'll run. I think if she runs, it'll just do more damage to her. I don't understand why. Heaven Help Us has an entry. We went through that already. So it's a very intriguing race if a few of these do turn up. But I would be having a few quid on Stormy Ireland. I think if she goes to the front and runs her race, I think she could string a few of these out.
And just here's one for you, just similar on the lads' kind of points. If anyone's lost some money on Concertista like myself, wait till she's beaten at Punchestown. It means they definitely won't keep her at 2.5 miles. They'll bring her back to 2, and she'll still be a 33-1 shot for the champion hurdle before people cop on, and that might be clipped into 20s and 25s, and the dream will live on for a year. So I'd personally wait till after Punchestown till she's well beaten over 2.5, and then maybe we'll make some money back in the champion hurdle next year. Who knows? I'll move on. Go on, Sean, move on.
Oh, no. Move on before it's too late then. And then also on Saturday, we've the Ballymore champion 4-year-old hurdle, and we've a message in here from Peter Punce. Thinks that Jeff Kidder is going to do it again for Noel Mead. I'll go to you, Andrew. Jeff Kidder's 12-1. You got Click Sauce 13-8. Zana here 15-8. Is this going to be a brilliant renewal?
Looks a good race, yeah. First, third, and fourth, in the Triumph Hurdle, all going at it again. Funny race, the Triumph Hurdle. Quilixios, I think, got the run of the race. I would be fancying the other two to actually go and reverse the form. I'm going to be quite keen on Zana here in this. Just it's a very funny run in the Triumph Hurdle. It was very keen all the way. Looked like he was going to end up out with the washing and then kind of stuck on again. Very strange performance, but I'm sure if Jack Kennedy had his time again, he'd probably ride the horse a little bit differently. I think he's still got an awful lot of class, and a little bit like some other horses, when they leave a visual impression on your mind, it's very hard to get that out. And I remember his performance at Fairyhouse earlier this year. I've never seen a juvenile do something like that in Ireland. It was mesmerising stuff when he beat St. Sam by 15, 17 lengths or whatever it was. Jeff Kidder is interesting. He's been improving. He keeps. He's won the last twice as well. He'd have to step up again though to be beating those types of horses. But you're getting a nice price as a result. But no, Zana here for me. I think he might be able to reverse the form with Quilixios. But the Mullins horse in there also is a complete unknown. I won't even try to pronounce his name. So I'll leave it at Zana here. One I can pronounce, and hopefully he can get the job done.
Ryan, do you wanna have a lash at trying to pronounce it?
Hot and Coulair. That one, is that the one we're talking about? I don't know. We'll make that one up. I actually do like Jeff Kidder. I think that I think he has every chance. If I was to pick one of the top two, I would completely agree with what Andrew's saying. I think Zana here is probably the one to side with again. I think he was way too keen at Cheltenham. Looked like he was going to get absolutely smashed out the gate, and then seemed to kind of get back into his rhythm over the last, but it was far too late. I think he'd be much better suited by Punchestown. It's a faster track. There's a David Cotton is a horse entered in this from France called Mika Malpic. Now, I think that's very strange. I can't remember the last time I've seen a French horse entered in a 4-year-old hurdle at Punchestown, if ever there's been one ever ran in it. So I think that'd be very interesting if he runs. I mean, his form doesn't look great, but I mean, there's no doubting that half of the best horses that Willie Munn's ever had all came from France. So I think that's very interesting that's running. Of the rest of them, I don't think some of the rest of them have any sort of don't have anything compared to the top 4 in the market, or top 5, should I say. I don't understand why St. Sam is 8-1. Like he was beaten by Jeff Kidder at Cheltenham. I think the reason why that sort of price, they probably don't think Jeff Kidder will run. I can understand that. So if I was to back Jeff Kidder, I'd back him today or tomorrow to get that sort of price. He mightn't run, but that'd be my bet. But if the top two, Zana here would be my pick as well. I just think that if he settles a bit better and gets to run of the race a lot more, he could overturn the form.
Just a little word there on that Mika Mal pick. I was told at the start of the year that he was meant to be some tool of a horse, but has had problems with his breathing. So he's had a couple of wind-ups since his last run. He disappointed. He won on his debut. But I think they hold him in very high regard. And as Brian's saying there, David Cotton, I can't not remember him having a runner in Ireland, let alone at Punchestown. So if he was to come over and run, he'd have to be a seriously highly regarded horse, I suspect, for them to make that move.
Dan, do you find Zani here to replace the form and beat Calixios?
Yeah, similar to what the lad said, to be honest with you, like horses for courses, in the sense that like Calixios is more suited to Cheltenham, and I think people who were backing Zani on the day kind of knew that, just thought Zani here would still outclass Calixios, and I don't think he travelled very well. Like sometimes I understand like trainers kind of put like giving a horse a break before Cheltenham, but sometimes horses just prefer running, and like he ran three times before Christmas, or just including the Christmas festivals, and then they just let Zani here off until Cheltenham. Maybe the break didn't suit as well. Maybe didn't travel over. The course didn't suit. I think back on a flat track in Punchestown, you're getting the same price compared to Calixios. I'll be taking a flyer that Zani here overturns that form. Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. That's all the 12 grade ones for the week of Punchestown covered. Any final word, lads? Thanks very much for your time. We're going to maybe run through, get your nap of the festival, and maybe the battle you're probably most looking forward to is going to be Monkfish and Envoi Allen. I'll go to you, Andrew. What's your nap, and what are you kind of most looking forward to taking from this week? Because you got to remember, it's been a long old year, but it's also been a very difficult year for horse racing. But it's come out the other side of it, with the brilliance of the likes of Henry De Bromhead, Rachael Blackmore, and hopefully this week of Punchestown can go one better. Yeah,
exactly. Look, the last couple of weeks have been brilliant for racing. Just from even a PR perspective, it's a PR's dream. This Rachael and Henry story, and hopefully it does continue. In terms of my nap will be Euro Tiep in that auction hurdle on the Wednesday, and also if you wanted another one, 5 helmets wherever he runs in a handicap. I think you might get okay prices on the two of them. In terms of clashes or what I'd love to happen, no different to actually what I wanted to happen at Cheltenham. I want Chacun Poursois to devour the 2 mile chasing division and absolutely romp in. If he romps in, you won't be hearing the end of it. Of course, got to give a shout out to Paul Nolan. If he has a winner of any sort of situation, you'll be hearing about it on Twitter. But no, it'd be Chacun to win would be the thing I'd love to happen the most anyway.
And any message for the naysayers, Andrew?
The Shack is back.
Because you're
a chief naysayer.
Yeah, just to get one up on Andrew, the night before the champion chase, he was like, "Where are the naysayers for Chacun Poursois?" And I just said, "Put the kettle on wins." And then you came back at me, and I didn't hear much from you the rest of the day. I was wondering.
Yeah, no, I was very quiet the rest of the day. It was all because Dan started chirping up. He'd come back from his concertista walk when I'd nailed him with black tears. Suddenly a new rejuvenated man after a walk outside.
Yeah.
But yeah, no swings and roundabouts, I'm afraid. But hopefully Chacun can get back.
We're getting some comments in here. Azal saying Nuba Negra for the Skeletons. Brian, what's your nap of the week?
I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. I'm going to nap Envoy Allen of the week.
Wow.
Because the simple reason is that a lot of these races are so competitive, with so many horses coming from Cheltenham and coming from here and coming from there, and one is 13-8, one's 15-8, one's 3-1, one's 4-1, and you're like, oh, you can make a case.
And
for
the
race
names are too long as well.
They just throw too much in, and like, what's wrong with the Dually Insurance Group Champion Novice Chase? I mean, that's just such a simple name of a race, but I mean, of all the favourites that have gone, or all the horses that we've spoken about, I mean, I really think that this will suit him. I just think that, I mean, I've always held him in high regard as he's been the most exciting horse I've seen in training probably ever since the likes of a Vautour, and there's no doubting in the ability that Monkfish has, but I just think that this might be the time when something like this could beat him. I said, look, he's the perfect blend of speed and stamina, and I think that he'd be my nap of the week. Would definitely be Envoi Allen. And if I'm to look at an each way perspective, I'd be very, very intrigued if Lady Breffney runs in that Irish Mirror Novice Hurdle on the Wednesday. I think that just her form, as we said already, I think her form lines are very strong. She's going to be getting £7 from the rest of the field, and a lot of these have not performed to the level that they've expected to have shown. The Albert Bartlett form is not strong. She seemed to stay every mile of that handicap in Fairy House. She mightn't have the class for these, but if she runs any sort of race, I think she could be bang there. So I think she could be 20-1. So they'd be my two to look out for the week.
And we're seeing change coming there. Gabby Nacco for Gavin Cromwell. Dan, what's your nap of the week?
Yeah, like out of the grade.
First of all, is the Shack going to win?
I actually agree with Andrew this time. I think the Shack will win, so we're on the same page there. It usually doesn't end too well. Justice, there'll be I wouldn't say justice now. The big race was the Champion Chase with Put the Kettle on one, and then 12-1. But look, we can't have that back. But I personally, I actually kind of like the price of Florin Porter in the Stairs 2-1. I think he's the best horse of the race. I think there'll be kind of money coming from him. I thought that Stairs hurdle was ran pretty true in the sense that everyone at the top of the market, I thought, ran very close to their form. So I think he'll be thereabouts in next year's Stairs hurdle. I also think 2-1's a pretty good price for the favourites. I'm just what I'm looking forward to most is that Tuesday. It's going to be ridiculous. Those three clashes and also the side story of Rachael Blackmore going for the jockey's title up against Paul Townend. And it's interesting that Envoi Allen, she's riding, whether that's because of the jockey's championship, whether it's because she's now going to be riding Cheveley Park Henry De Bromhead horses. Who knows?
Exactly. So there's a lot to look out for, and Rachael Blackmore is going for what will be one of the greatest years, not only horse racing history, but definitely in Irish sporting history. If she would to overtake Paul, who's obviously been unlucky with a few injuries, and he's back now, and he's back ready to defend his crown this week at Punchestown. So that's all the 12 grade ones we've covered for the week. I'm very much looking forward to it. We'll have a bit of reaction as the week goes on and the end of the national hunt season here in Ireland comes to a close. Thanks very much to Andrew and Brian for not only this week, but for also Cheltenham and adding a bit of horse racing talk onto the Tackling Sport podcast. So thanks very much for joining us, Andrew and Brian.
Cheers, Sean. Pleasure.
Thanks, lads.
And obviously to Daniel.
Cheers.
And make sure anyone who's listening, who's still watching us live, to check us out and subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a like, because that all helps us reach more people, and to check us out on all your podcast platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast platforms. So that's all from us here at the Tackling Sport podcast. Thanks for listening to our Punchestown Festival preview for 2021, and we'll hope to see you when the national hunt season resumes.